Hello, everybody. I am the Proactive Caregiver, and I specialize in educating others on how to be proactive by empowering you, the caregiver, because you cannot take care of your loved one if you do not take care of yourself. I know this concept all too well, and yet, as a caregiver, I tend to forget this until this last December when I injured my spine yet again. And you can imagine the panic that went through my body because the first thought was another surgery. But thankfully, this time around, a friend of mine gave me the best referral I could have ever received. And I followed up with it and found real healing. And to this day, I haven't had to worry about surgery. So going through this process, I thought, how many caregivers are out there that need to know this information? Because caregiver stress, whether you have a previous injury or it's just day to day that's beating you down, you need to know some things on how you can manage the pain in ways that are lasting, not just the Band-Aid. So I asked the owner of this wonderful referral, Ken Moench, to come in and explain to me what is the difference between this method and the industry standards. He's got over 25 years of experience, so he's had the time to perfect this method and refine to where it actually works. So today I asked Ken to be here with me. So thanks for coming on with me today.
Thanks for asking me. Thanks.
Yes. So before I get into all the details, tell me a little bit about how you came to create Moench Method.
I have a lot of answers for that. Somebody asked me recently the same question. They said, how did you get to the level of detail that you have when you're working with people, and I had to think about it for a minute. I was an electrician for 10 years. I did industrial electrical work, and the thing about electricity is you can't kind of fix it.
No.
It's either fixed or it's not, and if you don't fix it, it's dangerous, and bad things happen, and lights don't come on.
Right.
The same thing is true with plumbing. You can't kind of fix plumbing because it will back up and it will keep on dripping and you have to fix it, right? So if you're a plumber or an electrician, you know that there's no Band-Aid. You actually have to fix the problem.
Exactly.
And so I've always had that kind of a thing. I've been a problem solver by nature anyway. And I mean, I'd never even intended on being a massage therapist, and that's my title. I'm a massage therapist, and at one point I thought that I wanted to be a physical therapist, and I'd done all the things, and I'd been to college, and I was 3 classes short of being able to be to get into PT school, and I was working full time as a physical therapy aide because physical therapists, don't get me wrong, very smart people. You have to be very smart to get into school because you have to get almost straight A's and all that type of thing. Right. And so I'm working and I realized the 3 classes that I need are only offered in the middle of the workday at UT.
Of course.
And I was married and had 2 kids, and it was like I couldn't just not work. So I thought, well, if I went to massage school, I could free up my schedule, make a little bit more money, finish the classwork, and then I could go to PT school. And so I got done. I got my license. Actually, I was registered. They were RMTs before they were LMTs, and because that was 30 years ago. And the so I get done, and my boss at St. David's asked me if I'd like to work on clients at the clinic, and I said sure. So I started working on people, and I was fixing people in 1 or 2 sessions when they had been being worked on by the physical therapist in the clinic for weeks or months without appreciable difference in outcomes. And that was cool. And so I ended up working behind the curtain 8 hours a day, working on people and fixing them. And it's like, this is cool, but so I was making $9 an hour and they were charging $168 an hour for my time. And I talked to my boss, Marcia, and I said, Marcia, I have a family. I'm going to have to get a raise. I need some benefits and stuff. So she asked the people above her and they said no. So I said, okay. So I started treating people in the evenings. Once I got to 1 or 2 clients a day, I went to half days. And once I got to 3 or 4 a day, I quit. And I've been doing this ever since. So since then, the whole process has been, how do I fix people faster and more thoroughly than they are now? Because I mean, look around. I mean, I'm 63 years old. I don't know anybody my age that is not in pain.
Right. Exactly. I'm 47 and I experience it.
So my kids are now 29 to 40 years old. I mean, I have 4, and most of their friends are all in pain too. Yeah. So it's like you hardly going to find anybody that's not in pain. So really, how well is the medical community actually treating the general public? Because I don't understand why people have to go looking for clients. They're all over the place because everybody's hurt. Right. And so trying to figure out a better, faster way of fixing people. And then I took three classes. I took a class in trigger point therapy, deep tissue massage, and myofascial release. These were all like 6-hour, 12-hour weekend courses. Very scratch the surfacey kind of stuff. And then I took those because those were supposed to be deep corrective work. And I started playing around with combinations of how to work with these together, because I knew that what we had wasn't working because everyone was in pain. Yes. And so I thought, well, what would be a better way to get this done? And so eventually I put these things together the way that we have them. And I had several dozen clients that I was seeing on a fairly regular basis. I fixed them all. Awesome. And they didn't have to call me anymore. And so now the phone's not ringing, and I'm like sitting on my hands thinking, well, that went well, I guess. I hope they send more people. And they did. And it's how I'm still in business. Look, the stuff that we do is not fun to get done to you, because it's literally like, I just worked on a woman who I bought my Round Rock office from. I just left the office. They just came in from Colorado to actually get this done. She said, I'm going to forget the way that she said it. It literally is like this. If you walked in the door and your neck was hurting, for example, it would be like you had knives stuck all through your neck. And the difference between what we do and what most people do is this. We know where the knives are. Yes. We're willing to pull them out. While we're pulling them out, it's going to hurt. But the question is, do you want them in or do you want them out?
Exactly. How much are you willing to live with?
Yes. So if somebody wants the knives out, this is the place to come, because if you get those out, then your body can heal. And until then, you can't. And so that's always been the goal. And the other part of it, and I can't go any further without mentioning this. I've had too many people tell me how smart I am, and trust me, anybody that knows me knows that that's not probably true. When I tell my story, you will hear, it occurred to me. It occurred to me this, it occurred to me that, and I can only equate that to God just tapping me on the shoulder and saying, Ken, pay attention to this. Because all knowledge and wisdom comes from God. And I prayed long ago to be able to help heal people and to take their pain away. And he's not refused that request. And I really think all of this comes from him. And it's all him. And so seriously, it's well, it occurred to me to do this, it occurred to me to do that. And so a lot of the things that I do are just, I do pay attention, I connect dots, I listen, and I pray about stuff. Many times, if you're working on somebody, on people from 7 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, you're going to do a lot of praying and hope that your hands hold up long enough to get this person better and this person better and this person better. But it really is, it comes down to just wanting to solve problems. And those problems happen to be people being in pain, and we need to get rid of this and take care of it. And so a lot of prayer and a lot of pay attention to detail, and then listening to just your intuition, which I think is just God speaking to you anyway.
Absolutely. See, your method was the answer to my prayers, because as soon as my injury took place, the moment it happened and I heard that uncomfortable feeling of the disc rupturing,
Mm-hmm.
I just immediately my mind went from this point to, 2 years down the road of, oh God, I'm going to have another surgery, and the recovery time, I'm going to be out. I can't afford to be out. My mom needs me. The care of it, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
What are the quick fixes? Because that's what everybody wants,
Right.
the quick fixes.
Right.
After my last surgery, I didn't want to go back to the industry standards. I didn't want to go back to the quick fix, the over-the-counter meds that are not good for our liver and kidneys. I didn't want to get into that cycle again. Right. So I was praying for the answer. And then this referral came in. Conversation just went back and forth. I've tried this. They tried this. And both of us, until she said, well, you need to go here. And so going through that process, it was just like you said. It was painful, but it was even more painful not to do anything.
Right.
And I was skeptical because I had already been told, you're gonna have to have surgery. In fact, the assumption was that I was gonna go to physical therapy. And I don't know if they believed the physical therapy would actually help me or not, but that was the intent for me to go to physical therapy and then come back. And again, that intuition feeling was that they were expecting that I would come back and say, it didn't work, I'm in worse pain, I want the surgery. Because now it's me saying, I want the surgery, as opposed to them telling me, you have to have it.
Right.
And so when I came back after I think I only had 2 sections. I had 3 sessions in total. That was it. That was all it took, and it was amazing. But I think after the second session, I went back to check in with my surgeon, and he says, how's everything going? And I said, I'm great. And there was this pause. Like, what do you mean you're great? You're still doing the physical therapy. He had no idea what kind of therapy I was going through.
Right.
And then there was this disbelief. There's no way you could be perfect. You need surgery. Right. And we looked at my MRI again, and I said, that's true. I don't deny that I may need it maybe 5-10 years down the road, but right now I'm good. I have 1 more session. And at that point, I could say I was about 85%. I could feel just a little bit of tension that still had to be worked through.
Right.
But I went back, and after that 3rd session, it was done. And I was just amazed. And it was that feeling of joy, like pure joy of, not only am I out of pain, but I don't need surgery. So educationally or not, you were gifted. You were gifted, and then you've trained others to do this as well. And so this is it makes a huge difference.
There are so many aspects of this that are just it's fun. I think the week that you talked to your surgeon, there was another case that we were seeing somebody who was scheduled for cervical fusion, and they canceled theirs as well. So in 1 week, we had 2 cervical fusions canceled. And it's not that unusual. This happens on a fairly regular basis. And the problem with, look, there are some surgeries that are absolutely necessary. Emergency surgeries, doctors, many of them are so good. They're so smart. They're so talented. But But in many, 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 many cases, their doctors are treating symptoms of problems.
Exactly.
And not the problems.
Exactly.
Pain, and okay, so the reason that you came, you were going to seek treatment, that you wanted to get some relief is because you had pain.
Right.
And pain in almost every instance is your body telling you to slow down in no uncertain terms. It's making you slow down. Like when your neck was hurting, you were moving way slower than normal, right? And so your body was doing, here's the thing, even when your neck was bothering you the most and your shoulder and everything else, when it was bothering you the most, your body was still operating 100% the way that it was supposed to. It was hitting on all cylinders because it was telling you precisely what you needed to do and what you should not be doing. It was protecting you the entire time. So this is something that people need to understand, is if you're in pain, your body is not angry with you. Your body is literally trying to tell you what to do and what not to do. And we need to learn how to listen to the billions of sensors that we have all over our bodies instead of watching our Fitbit or our whatever and counting reps and doing all the different things that we're doing. Your body is telling you precisely what to do 100% of the time, but nobody's listening to it because what? Many of us have been athletes. And what have you been told by your coaches? Push through the pain. Push through the pain. Push. No pain, if you're going to play this game, you're going to play hurt, and you'd better just get used to it. People don't understand that mentality is the reason why so many people end up hurting and out of sports or out of doing the things that they love to do, because they have pushed beyond the body's capacity to maintain itself with all of those things, and then they end up doing nothing because they can't, because they're hurt all the time.
Right.
So pain is very simple. If you have tendinitis, if you've been told that you have tendinitis, if you have been told that you have arthritis, like osteoarthritis, what you really have is my muscle's too tightinitis.
Thank you for saying that, because I was told that I have a little arthritis in my shoulder, and I thought, oh no.
So, and how old did you feel when they told you that? Oh my God, you have arthritis.
Because
that's grandma stuff.
Exactly. Arthritis means old people.
Yes.
And old people above 85.
Yes. So let me explain exactly what those two things are. So in the case of tendinitis, you have three structures. You have bone that's getting pulled on. You have the tendon that attaches to the bone. And then you have the muscle that attaches to the tendon that attaches to the bone. Okay? So of those three things, which one was the problem? So it's not the bone, because it's just getting pulled.
Right.
The tendon attaches the bone to the muscle.
But the muscle...
If the muscle is too tight and contracted, it's pulling on the tendon, pulling on the bone. The muscle is the problem. It is too tight and contracted. The fascial sheath that covers that muscle is tight and contracted. And whenever you move something, it's pulling at the tendon. And if it does it long enough, you'll develop a calcium deposit where the tendon attaches to the bone. If you do an x-ray, that will show up, and doctors will say it's arthritis. That's all it is. But the calcium deposit does not cause you pain. It's the fact that the muscle is pulling on a tendon that's pulling on the bone. So it's like pulling on your hair. Your scalp hurts. Is there anything wrong with your scalp? Really? No. If you let go of the tendon, the hair, then the scalp stops hurting.
Right.
So that's pain in your body. That literally is pain in your body, and that's what arthritis is too. The only thing that arthritis will eventually do is it could grow into a bone spur that can cut into the tissue around it and clip a tendon or whatever that it attaches to. So you still have to do some correction there, but the way that you do it is you have to lengthen the muscle and the fascial sheath that attaches to the tendon that's pulling on the bone. Now, the tendon could be attached to your spine. And if it's pulling your spine out of place, then that can pinch the nerves that are coming out of the spine that can cause referred pain elsewhere. But it still is the muscle is too tight and contracted. Right. Now, the genesis of nearly all of these things is you were in your mother's womb for a long time, in a very cramped space, in a fetal position.
Right. Folded in half.
Yes.
Just about.
So your knees are pulled up, which means your hip flexors and your hamstrings and your glutes and your shoulder and your neck are all going to be short and tight. Now, when you're born, none of your joints are formed properly. You have no kneecaps. And you're very flexible, but it's only because your joints are absolute mush at that point.
Right.
When those things firm up and all of these muscles are really still tight and contracted like they were in the womb, you're going to start crying a lot. And doctors will say, well, babies cry. It's the laziest thing I've ever heard. It's like, trust me, you should not stop learning after college, because the stuff they teach you in college is just where you're getting started. You have to be a problem solver, and it's like a mammal doesn't cry for no reason.
Exactly.
And babies aren't supposed to cry all the time, and we work on infants and we open everything up and they're lying on their back completely opened up with no pain or discomfort. They will never develop scoliosis or the torticollis where the head's all cocked one way can be fixed in one session. If anybody, please, this is off script a little bit, but if anybody knows of somebody who has a baby that will continuously cry and just will not let them get sleep and is obviously uncomfortable, instead of shaking the baby because you don't know what to do because you've fed them, burped them, and changed their diaper, bring them to me, and if you can't afford the treatment, I'll treat them for free. It's every case of child abuse starts with a crying baby. And they don't know what to do with them. They've done everything the doctor told them to. They're doing the very best they can, but sleep deprivation is torture. The CIA requires permission to sleep deprive somebody more than 11 days. I've had kids crying for 2 years, my kids, and that's sleep deprivation, and it makes you nuts.
Yes.
So if anybody knows anybody whose baby is in that condition, just get them in. The babies are great. There's nothing wrong except they're tight and contracted. They need to be lengthened so that they can be comfortable. The plus side to that is the babies get to develop in a way that no baby has in the history of the world. And I know this because of this. Every culture in the world swaddles babies so that they'll stop crying. Exactly. And they're putting them back in the position that they were in the womb so that the muscles are shortened so they're not uncomfortable. And so if you lengthen all of those things, they literally are lying on their back, completely comfortable, stretched out. The important part, there's so many different things about this, but the babies are forming more neural pathways in the first years of life than they'll ever form. This is the foundation for their intellect. They're doing this while they're in constant pain.
It's amazing.
Which, think about having the flu. Last time you had the flu, on the worst day when your body ached from head to toe, that's how they feel. And so if that's the way that they feel, and they have no agenda, they don't have a work schedule to get to, they're just focused on the pain.
They're just in pain all the time.
They're not focusing on everything else going around them. So language, music, art, all of the different things that they could be learning from, they're not, because they're focused on their pain.
And they don't know to push through it at that point.
No.
They just...
Exactly. They're existing
in a state of pain.
So if the foundation for a person's intellect is this big because all that they could learn during the first 2 years of life was this, because they were in constant pain. What happens if they're in no pain from the first days or weeks of life, and instead of their foundation being this big, it's this big, and then their intellect grows up from that instead of from here? What does that look like? That looks like a fully functional brain. And some of the kids, it's just incredible. They all have the same stories. The pediatricians don't understand why they can do the things that they're doing, because nobody they've ever seen has been able to do the things that their kids are doing.
Which is a pure testament to continually learning and evolving, that what we learned in school 15, 20, 30 years ago is not the same today. And as a new mother, I was told that's called the fourth trimester.
Yeah.
So that when they are born, the swaddling, they need this. And I'm thinking, okay, no, we need this.
It's outside of the, it's counter, if you really think about it and think about, wait a minute, they're in pain because they were in this position, and then you lengthen everything so they're not tight anymore. Now, I had a guy who brought his kids, 2 of them from Houston. He was a client of mine when he was in high school. College. And he brought both his kids, both preemies, and he brought them to me before they were supposed to be born. Wow. And his oldest son, he's a firefighter. His oldest son, at 14 months, was eating exclusively with a fork or a spoon. Not because they taught him, but because he observed them eating. And he reached and grabbed and started eating with a fork and a spoon. I mean, if anybody's been around a 14-month-old, they're just grabbing stuff and shoving it in their mouth. And this kid was very careful and deliberate and started eating that way. But that's just one story. There's so many, and pediatricians are blown away. They just can't believe these kids can do the things that they do.
But see, this is what we do as adults even, because that's what I resulted to. Right. The moment my injury happened, I went to swaddle my arm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
You're closing it off.
I closed it up, and I stayed like that for probably 2 weeks. I think I was in a sling for at least 2 to 3 weeks before I started my first session. Right. And then I got to the point where I was like, I don't want to take it out. Mm-hmm. This is helping the pain to stop. So I don't want to move.
Yeah. So we get into a smaller and smaller cocoon.
Right.
And so at 47 years old, you were limiting the activities that you could do that you enjoyed doing because of fear of pain.
Right.
And because it would hurt. And so that's really, I mean, our whole thing is we're trying to eliminate people's pain completely so that they can do the things that they're here for.
And that's exactly why I wanted others to hear this, is because as caregivers, how many times do we push through the pain? I mean, I found a way. I didn't stop being a caregiver just because I had this injury. I had to keep going. And I found a way to keep myself, strapped. My arm, it was coming around the back and I had it tightly strapped, and I was working and moving and doing. And the moment that arm went out further or I tried to extend, it was like, stop, don't move. Okay. But I kept going. And then I would do it again and I'd feel the pain and stop, don't move.
Yeah. And it's like, so if you carried that forward, how long would it be where you were completely disabled?
Gosh, had I not gone to your office, I probably still would have had, it was a combination of over-the-counter meds, the sling, KT tape. I had, at one point I said, okay, I'll pull the pacifier. I'll let go of the sling, but I put the KT tape on and it helped for a couple of days, but then I kind of got to the point where, well, this is the new sling. I wore that for a couple of days and putting fresh strips on every 2 days. And then my skin got irritated. Oh, yeah. And it was just like, okay, this is not a long-term solution. This is just not. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a pause there because part 2 next week, Ken's going to continue on and explain to me how we need to and can reset the pain signal in our body. But before then, I want you to pose that question to yourself. How long can you go as a caregiver in pain before you are completely disabled? Remember, we're not helping our loved ones when we're living with pain that needs attention. I hope this episode gave you more food for thought. If you need more information, you can always go to www.proactivecaregiver.com. Until next time, be proactive. Take care, everybody.